The first thing is that I really like materials, and I'm always inspired by materials. So wherever I walk, even in the forest, even if it's in the forest, I start looking at the bark and the leaves. So I'm always looking and being inspired by materials. So the first thing is the designer or the artist who walks around and sees the possibilities and the quality of a material. And if you ask 100 other designers to make the same walk, they just walk and they think this is old stuff, you know. So they don't see and feel the quality of it. So I think the real story is that I've always been focused on using materials, machines, craft, possibilities around me. That's the starting point. Most people have a romantic idea about design in terms that you are making new stuff. And so for me, that's not the case. I try to take advantage of the possibilities. So it's not romantic at all. It's very pragmatic. I like that it's simple, and I like that it's transparent, and I like that something is put together in a way everybody understands, and then in the end it becomes beautiful because it's so simply connected. For me, it always has been very important to actually execute my own ideas. So that has nothing to do with a marketing plan or with the sort of context which you normally hear. But I really always, even when I was a little child, I was making all kind of things. Also little houses with a little furniture in it. I even have like a little chair still. I kept a chair and a cupboard which were in houses made of matches, and that's as big as one thumbnail. And that was also the reason to become a designer. I wanted to make my own furniture. Most designers are trying to make new designs because this is what you do, you know, a designer makes new designs. And I don't try to make new designs, I try to optimize everything around me and to make a maximum advantage, or take a maximum advantage of everything which I created around me. So we're here in our building, and this is, in Holland we say, if you feel well, you feel like a fish in the water. So I always thought this is the only thing I did really on purpose. The rest is coincidence. But I thought if I create my own environment, which fits in my world and where I'm happy, the chance that I function well and make good stuff is quite big. And that's the biggest chance to have success. And I didn't know what it would be. I didn't know what would be the outcome. I didn't know what to do, but I knew that I wanted to have this environment where I can think about design, where I can actually make the drawings, where people are there to help me executing it and also selling it. And well, the whole process from idea until consumer is under one roof here. This is the 40/40 project. So this is in fact a very good example of this project. Each product we do once. So either a different shape or a different color, but never the same. And this is an organic table we're going to present in Germany on a fair. And down it's brown, but if you put it around on the other side, it's completely white. But I want to have, for the feeling, I want to have it the same, because it's a very labor-intensive way of working. And then if you're sitting on the table and you feel, and it's not like that, it feels poor. So we make the other side, which you never see, also with the same technique in order to actually feel that it's the same attention also on the back. And all of a sudden, what was a disadvantage that you are not able to invest a lot becomes an advantage because it's so simple and nicely put together that people say, I like it because of that. So that's the whole trick of our way of producing. And this actually created a whole way of manufacturing and provides all the time new ideas, like specifically the materials are always my favorite, in fact this is the major inspiration. It always starts with material. Like the first cupboard I made from scrap wood, I saw scrap wood and I thought it was nice. And somebody who's not inspired by materials doesn't think this is nice. But I'm looking at materials, I think, oh, this is beautiful, this is beautiful. And everybody thought this is old, it's for a rabbit house outside, but not for domestic purposes. So for me it was so normal to use this material because I love materials and I always try to be as efficient as possible with it and to do the things which cherish it. So all the designs are totally focused on materials, and this has been a major theme in the company. And the funny thing is now it becomes normal, you know, that you don't spoil materials because everybody more or less knows that we spoil too much, so you don't throw it away. But we never threw it away, and I always try to do things with materials which others or ourselves considered as leftovers. And at a certain moment I was so annoyed about the fact that we and every other company throws away materials because it's too expensive to do something with it. You know, labor is too expensive. So I thought I'd turn it around. I act as if labor costs nothing and material is worth a fortune. And I start redesigning the process. And we made a stool of leftovers from the scrap wood cupboards, just piling up, very inefficient, but that was the whole fun, you know. And then we made a table, and this table had to be finished. And one of the guys who made it, or the guy who made it, he asked me, and he said, how do I finish it? I said, well, just lacquer it 10 times, as long as it is a lot of work, because work is for free, which was not the case, of course. But he started lacquering, and I was inspired by the fact that we previously we renovated a riva, a boat, and we had to lacquer it 10 times, and it was almost like yin-yang, you know, like meditation. So I said, well, lacquer it 10 times. And then the result was like, it was like ceramics. The surface was so beautiful. And we thought we would never sell this table because it was extremely expensive. And in fact, this table has been the most successful table ever in our company. And the whole theme of using leftovers by adding an enormous amount of labor has been a very important theme. And it's totally in contrast with what everybody does in the world.
Well, this is the spraying cabin. It's one of our important places, of course, because the high gloss lacquering, which we discovered by coincidence, is a process which goes on all the time. So most products we have, we paint like at least 7 times on one side. So 2 sides is 14 times. And the logistics to actually lacquer everything are amazing. It's all the time like completely filled up with all the different items, sanding, lacquering, sanding, lacquering, sanding, lacquering. It's really a lot of work.
It's only inspired because I was annoyed about throwing away, but it's very much the theme in the world in terms of the balance of labor and materials, and also our everyday life where we don't have time at all to do anything in a proper way. So I think the success is the reason why I was annoyed is a normal thing in society, and everybody recognizes probably the theme, and that's funny. That's the story which you don't think up front, but you realize afterwards.
Well, this is again something, it's a commission. So normally this cupboard has a certain size. It's designed for ceramics, for porcelain, for services. And the whole, well, it's a very simple way of putting all the wood together, but it gives the visual, it creates a visual openness which is quite extraordinary for a cupboard like this. So you can look right through it as if it's a tunnel, and normally you have like verticals which are not transparent, and if you put, of course, if you put ceramics in it and it goes on through the whole length and you can look around it, then it gives a totally different quality to those products in comparison with the closed side. So it's very much made to expose products, and it's each time a sort of back, top, bottom solution which repeats and which also provides the frame to put the glass in. So everything has a reason to be there. This is not such a nice thing to make. It's a lot of work. So we wanted to make it for the collection, and we had some requests. And at that moment it was, I think, 6,000 euros. And we were not able to produce it within time to also, because we are, directly it's okay. but of course a shop also has to make money, so you have to sell it for 3,000, and then the real cost price is 2,000. So, and then we were not able to make it. So the real cost prices was quite high. But it's a quite simple thing, but we're not able to make it in a proper way.
The designer has to think about every aspect. If you fail in one aspect, the product won't be a success. So I thought if I keep everything in my own hands, at least I'll spoil it myself, but it's not somebody else spoiling it. So the idea of doing everything ourselves has been right from the beginning the major theme, and this brought us here, but also provides so many opportunities and chances and advantages in comparison with other designers that in the meanwhile it's a whole story. For me, the environment is on itself, you know, like the style, it's chaos here, which is also something I thought about later on, because the employees don't always like the chaos. But if there's happening a lot of different things and people are talking right through each other and things happen and he's doing this and somebody else is doing something else and nobody actually sees who's doing what, except me perhaps, I don't know, then things happen and things are open. And from chaos comes ideas, and if everything is organized, you don't get input or less input. So I create a sort of chaos around me, and people don't always like it, but for me it's something which is positive. And the other thing, of course, is that if you actually design something, or doesn't matter, you have an idea, you need people to execute it, you need money to execute it, you need the machines, you need the space, you need everything, you need customers. So if you're able to create this, it's not even only an environment, but it's a whole model where everything comes together. You know, you need somebody who is enthusiastic about a new design if you want to sell it. And if you don't sell it, you're not able to make the next design. So the whole organization and everything what happened until now is only created or is there to give me the possibility of doing what I want. That's, of course, that's something which is so precious. That's incredible.
This building what was it before?
It was from Philips, and they made ceramics here. So it's called the ceramic factory from Philips. It's the showroom, so it's not done in a chronological or anything else, but it's almost everything which is still in the collection, and that means that we have products right from the beginning until very, very recently. And well, it's quite huge because it goes around the whole workplace. I think it's 2,000 square meters or something like that.
But the funny thing is that this first chair, which I made as a child of 12 with the surgeon knife and the rope and the glue and the matches, which was the source, and I thought this is exactly the same like I work now with huge beams, which I don't know what to do with because it's, you know, they are too big to do anything with, but I just bought them very cheap. And this inspires at this moment to make huge beam furniture, piling up those beams like a child, you know, like a child's playing with his blocks. And it's the same thing as the surgeon knife, because I didn't have space and money and possibilities. So nothing has changed, only the size and the possibilities changed. But it always has been focused on what's there and what can I do with it. Like a chef in a restaurant, if he has to deal with the ingredients, well, you can't make fish if you only have meat, you know. So for me, this is the basic thought: is that to do the maximum with the minimum. That's more or less the theme in my life.
Yeah, it is the benches. It's part of the beams project. So I bought a huge amount of beams, and very cheap. The transport was more expensive than the beams were, and then we had to rent a complete space because we didn't have the space to stock it, and then we had to move it to here. We moved it 3 or 4 times, and now we have stock again. So the beams, which were originally very cheap, became in the end a big problem and very expensive. So we also made a little book about it. But the whole thing is how to get rid of the beams. And we've been making almost everything from beams for a while, just to get rid of this huge amount of almost unusable materials. And the cupboards here, also from beams, and everything is very much inspired on the sizes of the material itself, and it takes care of the quality. If you look at the cupboard here, which is, well, it's the way I think in general. So it's the whole idea is to cut only in the short side, because in the length you have much more problems with nails and so on. So if you only do this, it's quite easy to determine if there are nails in it, so you don't lose your tools. And then the size is 3 times the beam it makes the width. This is clear, this is the hinge, so this is also a size which is determined by the size itself. And then if you open it, you see here the bottom is a little bit back to make place for the doors. So in the back it gets a little bit out, and there we put the back on top of it. And then the amount of and the size of the beams in the back determine the height of the cupboard. So it's from left to right, from top to toe. Every size is determined by the beams itself, and that's very much the way we work. So I make the principle. So I say, okay, we have to do it like this, and I make even a model, and then the guys have to actually calculate and measure each beam, what they're going to use to make this cupboard, which is fun, of course.
That's why I like the old wood, because it's all colors from architecture, because almost all of the wood comes from old buildings, fences, interior, exterior. So there's a lot of traditional architectural colors in it, in our products. White, grey, green, because all the houses in Holland are white, grey, green, for example. But the colors, even if they were very bright, if they are a long time in use, outside or inside, they change in a natural way. And if you combine them, it's like the sea changing colors to, like whitish and so on. Even a very strong color becomes pale in the sea. And in fact, that also happens on houses and so on. So the colors are old. And I like that. At that time, I loved the pattern and the structure of it, and that it's worn, that it tells a story. That's beautiful. We had so many people asking how do you find something like that? But so the first 10 years, I always told I was renovating a cupboard for my sister, and I was at the lumber yard and I saw the scrap wood over there, and I explained that in Holland we have lumber yards and we have to build, we have to demolish because we don't have space, and we have a Calvinistic part in us that says you don't throw away. So those 3 components in Holland makes lumber yards and recycling of wood an aspect from everybody's youth even. Everybody's father has been and mother had made some old wood things because that was cheaper than new wood, and you recycle, So that is the culture in Holland. But at a certain moment I thought this is not really the starting point, because then everybody could have used the scrap wood if he saw it, and nobody saw it and nobody actually recycled it at that moment, and even 10 years later.
Well, this is one of the best products we have, the scrap wood cupboard, the oak chair in scrap wood we call it, because the original one was in oak, and it took almost 10 years to make it in scrap wood, because I had a sort of blind spot in mind. Because if you have a scrap wood chair and you have only scrap wood on this side or on the back, it's not a scrap wood chair. So I thought it wouldn't be a success. But I didn't realize, stupidly enough, that we make the backs, I invented it myself, of 2 pieces of massive wood glued together. So you can easily show on both sides scrap wood. And then after 10 years I thought, it is possible. Why didn't I think about that earlier? And since then, this chair is by far the best-selling chair, or maybe even the best-selling product we have, and it's also an important money maker. But it took 10 years to actually have this stupid idea out of my head. Why not to do it? And so it's fun, because you find yourself looking over a very clear possibility, which is even important, but just because you're not in the right track, you don't think about it, which is totally stupid, I think. So the original chair is 1994 or 5 or something like that in oak. The first one was straight, not comfortable. Everybody liked it, or a lot of people liked it, but it was too straight, not ergonomic. And then we changed specifically the angle in the seat, and we changed the curve in the back, like I just described, with the 2 thick pieces of wood. And when we changed that, it became a successful chair. We started selling it. And the funny thing is, we use this chair for almost all our smaller chairs because it's so comfortable. So people don't believe it because it's very tight and small, but people are not that big. And it is much better than most upholstered chairs. So in terms of a long evening sitting, this chair almost wins from every other chair. And but I have to explain it often to people. So just try it because it's better than you think, and it's much better than you're used to. So
the major theme always has been furniture, and still is. But we added the garden houses later on. We did a lot of architectural projects for our customers, and sometimes renovations. We added free work. With like the door cupboards and the garden houses, which started as free work and became commissioned work often. We do a lot of interior designs, the complete projects. We do art projects for architects, so they have a building and they need something, and we make sort of collaboration and we create like the art attached or in the building. It's a wide variety of activities, but that's also because the concept and the way of working, you can use it for it is not stylistic and it's not bound to a building or a cupboard, or if I have an old building I can do the same, only it's big, but it's the same mentality. It's nothing changed if you compare it to the scrapwood cupboard or the building. It's the same way of thinking. In terms of the audience or our customers or the journalist, wood is the center, and if I have to choose in working myself with wood or steel, I prefer steel. So if it's as simple as that, it's a simple answer. So the way people see us, it's because of the scrapwood, which is is the strongest in terms of communication, the strongest thing we've done in our way of working, of celebrating materials. But in general, we use metal, oak, and in very much the same way. So for me, it's material in general. But for people looking at our brand and me as a designer, people think about the wood. But we have a huge variety of materials and products and projects, which is all different, but all with the same wish to optimize everything. Well, the funny thing is that if you work like we do, and again, I didn't know how it would happen, what would happen, but if you work like we do, and you're not a brand showing each year in Milan new stuff, but adding something to what you already do. So making a collection which is slowly growing and getting better and better, because you're improving everything each time, and also you're adding new designs. And the brand is the designer, so there's no difference. Piet Hein Eek is everything from ID until the trunk in your car. So or at home. Normally you design for a company. And specifically in furniture, it's quite fashionable. So each year there's a new collection, and most products are taken off, and there comes new. And sometimes a product, of course, remains because it's good enough. But we never change the product. We just go on. So we have the products from 20 years ago still in the collection, and some of them are very successful, like the scrapwood cupboard, the oak glass case, the Philips cupboard, the waste material table. They are all 20 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, and we add each time something completely new. Nobody likes because it's new. You can't like something which is new, because at least the dealers, they like what they sell, and what's new they don't sell, so they have to get used to it. And so it takes a lot of time to actually get a new idea accepted by the people who have to sell it. The consumers are not so bad, but the retailers are very bad in the mechanism of repeating their success. They avoid new stuff, and we like making new stuff. But the funny thing is, since we started until now, everything we've done in terms of design, in terms of investment in molds, in machines, in craft, in employees, everything is still there, is still available. So even the cupboard from my exams of 1989, which is 24 years ago, still makes money, which is like it sounds very commercial, but it's the opposite. It's, you know, it's like not throwing away energy. It's not like each year something new, but to improve everything all the time. And that's a not deliberate thing. Again, it's almost everything is a coincidence. But on the other hand, the choice to do it like this was something we felt good with.
So we made the bar from old tubes. How do you call it? When we were doing the renovation, we took out an enormous amount of steel, and one container we kept to make the bar for the restaurant, and after that we still had a container because the container is a lot. Although the bar is quite big, we didn't even see the difference. So we had a lot of tubes left over, and then a while later I designed those pile of bars, of tubes, and it became quite successful. There's a whole story to it, but it's fun, beautiful.
The funny thing is that a lot of education is focused on, oh, this is a nice idea, and then it's finished. Well, then it starts, because how to execute it and keep this idea as good as it was. You know, like in the first phase, all ideas are nice. But when it's finished, most of the time the ideas are not so nice anymore, because you know you had to change this and that, and you, oh well, this was a problem, and then you see a sort of bad end of a story with a beautiful fairy tale as a start. You know, it's like a fairy tale coming into a horror, and so I think the process from the first idea until the idea is actually realized. That process is much more important than the idea itself, and that's why we're quite good at here. We're totally focused on making, realizing ideas. Yeah, the products are made very much trying to do the most obvious thing with the material, machines, etc., and that makes it so natural that people start feeling it also and understanding it. And as soon as you understand something, it becomes closer to you, of course. If you don't understand it, it's like a bridge between the consumer or the one who looks at it and the product. And it's again something which is very much I have to do it like that, because economically we can't do very difficult things, but on the other hand it's also what I like the best. So it's two things coming together. And I always say that if everybody tries to do very special things and you do very normal things alone, you're very special. So, and that's probably one of the reasons why people like it, because most designers and most people try to do special things. They don't do the obvious thing because that's obvious. And to do a real good, obvious thing also it takes intelligence, but it's a totally different approach. And I think this is so in contrast with what normally is done. Everybody wants to do special things, wants to be special. I don't want to be special, I want to be normal, because that's good enough, you know. And specifically for the designs, it's so rational often that and so understandable. That it's I often think it's so simple. It's not the design. It's too simple, but in the end, often those ideas are the best in the products also. If everybody works in a certain direction and you do the other one, they create your space, and that feels rebellious. That's what we just discussed. But it's also pragmatic again, because if everybody tries to compete in the same game somewhere and you just start your own game, you can't lose, because in the first place it's your own game. But if you have to play it, at least there are not so many people playing it also. So it's much nicer. And then you think, well, this game will be not so important or not obvious or not this or not that, because of course everybody plays an important game. So they take but even that is, you can doubt. I think everybody does something without being aware if it's important or if it's clever. It's just done because everybody does it. So there's so much space in the world to do your own thing and still have a good chance that it's quite pragmatic to do like that. It's not rebellious. It's not because I dislike what they're doing. I don't even think it's bad what they're doing. Only for me, with our company and our possibilities and my mind and my way of thinking, it's better to do another game, to play another game. So I try to create my own circumstances, my own environment, my own game, and then if you're good at it, it's easy. People like it.
Yeah, this is a wooden chandelier. And
I've been focused right from the beginning on working with the maximum respect for the materials, and it's not. I don't do things consciously different from the rest, but what I do is try to find my own territorium, and it's often people feel it as if I'm rebellious, and I don't feel it like that. I just do what I do, and it's often different, but it's not to be different. And I think it's most of the time very simple and very normal. And I think sometimes, often, almost everybody is something doing abnormal. So if you're alone and you're doing normal, it doesn't, or you do something which is different from the rest, it doesn't mean that you're not the normal one. It's quite obvious in this world where we're living in that most of the time, if everybody does something, it's stupid and not normal. So I'm not a rebellious, I just try to follow my common sense.
And the whole restaurant is done in a sort of eclectic way. So I didn't want to have it designed, and I wanted to have many different qualities and how do you mean it, atmosphere. So that's for everybody. There's something where they get happy from. With the same idea to create like very different feelings in one space instead of doing everything in one vision. Oh, that's our canteen table. So we have lunch here every day with the whole company at once, and of course the lunch and the tea and the coffee and so on. And it is also showing the growth of the company, because the first table was until here. That was big enough. And then at the old place, the previous place, we had a lack of space, and we added the 2 meters. So this is I think 5 and 2 is 7, and then we went, and then it was really too small. So we had 2 shifts eating every day at a certain moment. And then when we moved here, we added 2 tables of 5 meters each, I think. So this is now the size, and but we can grow a little bit still. And this is the material stock. So here we have all the scrap wood piled up vertically to be able to select the colors and so on. Here everything is born.
Yeah, exactly.
The womb,
Yeah.
exactly.
What I've done is almost everything, because I like doing everything. You know, I see a designer and myself as a generalist. I also like that very much. And except what I just said about creativity and having ideas, that's another thing. You shouldn't focus only on the ideas, but on the whole, on everything, on every aspect. But what I think is now not yet a real theme if people think about design, is that because designers are educated to think about everything, they actually are quite good in thinking about a company. So the whole process. And if you look at how the boards are filled, it's always financial people, technical people, and they are all educated as quite autistic on one theme. And if they have a brighter view, it's because they did it themselves. But designers have to have this generalistic approach and are trained to do it, and most of the time are also in the rest of their life are trained even further. So I think designers shouldn't think they're only there to design, but actually should be a pain in the ass on the whole process and get as much or as many important jobs as possible. And not only like drawing, but also be the CEO or something. Like Steve Jobs perhaps was, like at least he was a creative person and a generalist. And I think it's a good example how important ideas are for society. So even not only a company, even in the government, you need people who say, yeah, yes, you all think it's like that, but I think it's like that. You know, you need to, if you're creative, you see the problems and you see the opportunities. And if you're just taken by the process, you don't see either. So you need this freeway, generalistic way of thinking to have efficient governments, companies, society. So the whole world is yours. That's my advice to young designers. I think this is also a very nice conclusion that everybody, all the governments are saying, well, the artists, they don't need money and so on, and the music is, as you know, they are if they have to get some money, the first thing they do is to cut in cultural activities, and the only thing which remains as a valuable thing is music, is art, is, well, you can mention the plays, everything in cultural stays. Not everything, but the important. So, and you need to flourish that, to give it space and money to enable people to make art. And of course, not all artists are successful, but it doesn't matter. One of them will be the new Rembrandt or the new, I don't know. I often say I don't have anything to wish anymore because I do every day what I want to do. And as long as that's the case, I'm able to create and make new stuff. And that's the thing where I get really happy from.